Welcome to the Panza Panza Forum. In the Yoruba language, the word panza is usually injected into poetry to express an uncomfortable, uncensored, and inconvenient truth. The Panza Panza Forum is candid conversations about the life of African immigrants in America as it relates to their adaptation to their new home. While some may find it easy to integrate and can balance between retaining the original African culture while accepting the culture of their new home, many continue to struggle to find a balance between both worlds.
Hello and welcome to Panza Panza Live. This is a podcast where we discuss the lives of African immigrants and their assimilation into Western society as they raise younger generations in a country that is quite different from their own. We also explore the experiences of children of immigrants as they balance the African and Western cultures. We present to you this informative, interesting, and expansive dialogue about the intricate experiences of African immigrants in America.
Welcome to another episode of Panza Panza Podcast. This is a platform where we engage in deep conversation about the experiences, challenges, and the resilience of African immigrants navigating life in the diaspora. I'm your host again, Kemi Siriki, and today my guest is Addo Osaman, a Nigerian immigrant in Canada. He's also a travel consultant. He's an influencer, a pastor, and an entrepreneur whose mission is dedicated to empowering African immigrants navigating life in Canada. For a decade, Addo has worked in the intersection of immigration guidance, employment support, social integration, and spiritual care, helping individuals and the family overcome both practical and emotional barriers while they are settling abroad. Through his presence on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube, he provides timely and honest and often uncomfortable insight into Canadian immigration pathway, the reality of the job market, the mental and the social challenges immigrants face in the diaspora. He's a devoted husband, father of 2 children, and is committed to deeply helping immigrants not only to survive, but to build stable, purposeful, and fulfilling lives in their new communities. So thank you so much, Eddie Addo.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
I hope you're ready for me because I love to talk a lot.
Absolutely. By the grace of God, we'll do our best to answer the questions with wisdom.
Yes. So I love to introduce my guests, to look at their background because the background determines how somebody came to be who they are. So to understand your immigration journey, we must first understand where they come from and the values, the culture, and the upbringing that shape their worldview. So can you tell us about your family background, what life was like growing up in Nigeria?
Thank you so much. So I'm the last of 5 children, born to, of course, 2 amazing, godly parents. So I would say that one of the first things that shaped my worldview was my father. He was my number one mentor and role model. And throughout the course of my life, I always say that there are 5 men that God has used to shape me to become who I am today. The first person is my father, and there are 4 other men, both, especially in this spiritual Christian field. So being the last of 5 kids, one of the things that our parents always did for us was to give us equal treatment and equal opportunities. So there's nobody that would say, because you are the last born, you are treated with that special kind of care. No, everybody's given equal treatment, equal opportunities. And that gave us the sense of balance that we needed. My father was, besides being a godly parent, my father was a politician as well. So he was well known in the Nigerian and especially Addo state political field before he passed on. And copying a lot from my dad, I got to know that as I was growing up, that I had this tendency to lead people and to influence people towards the right direction. So that was just what, solidified my foundation. So irrespective of where I found myself, I always saw those traits coming out. And that's who I am today by the grace of God.
Wow. So coming to Canada or the Western world, looking back, what part of your Nigerian family and cultural upbringing prepare you for both life in the diaspora and what didn't? Because sometimes a cultural upbringing prepare us, some don't.
Yeah.
So which one do you?
I would say the major part of the Nigerian culture or African culture that I still uphold till today comes from the culture of resilience, ensuring that, you never give up. We always have this grit as Africans, wherever we find ourselves, that we never give up, no matter. And I think part of the reasons why we have that nature is because we grew up surviving with the barest, worse than the barest minimum. And, in societies like this, everybody just kind of lives normal, this laid back life. But in Africa, we had nothing compared to what we find in the Western world. So we thrived with the barest minimum, and we compensated the barest minimum with searching for the spiritual. So spirituality helped us to, balance and compensate for the other things that were lacking in our society. So I would say resilience is the major thing that I could take. But of course, there are still some other traits and characters that were inimical to my growth. So I had to unlearn them. I had to let them go. So I believe with the course of time, we'll talk about that.
Talk about that. So that's so powerful what you just said, because as immigrant, we tend to strive for the best.
Yeah.
To the extent we're not even paying attention to anything else. We put the same thing on our children. Because since I've had this conversation, that's what I hear from many of our children that were born here or brought here at a very young age. So a lot of time we don't know how to relax. Sometimes it spells out competition among us.
Absolutely.
To the extent that this one has this, I must have it too, or I must do better than everybody else around me. And that's so powerful what you just said. And I know many people could relate to that. So early part of your migration, many immigrants arrived with the hope and the dream and expectation, often shaped by the social media, success stories, like we just pinpoint a little bit now. People showing their material belongings, such as their car, houses, look at what I've acquired. What were some of the biggest challenge you faced during your early years as a new immigrant in Canada?
All right. Thank you so much. That question is very powerful. But let me just say this. I believe that to answer that question, one of the philosophies that I hold there that will help answer that question is the fact that when you migrate abroad, migration is first mental before it becomes economical. What do I mean? People migrate for economic reasons, but they don't migrate mentally. And when they come to a new environment, they get stuck with what we call the rat race, which of course I know you are familiar with.
Yeah.
The rat race and, the comparison, like you said, classism, they need to show off, and people get stuck in this loop. And there was a video I shared a few months back about one of the things that the devil uses to hold people back is survivor mentality. People get trapped. Once they come in, they want to survive. But you have to move from the surviving mentality to the thriving mentality before living abroad starts making sense. So the major challenge for me was unpacking those mentalities that really, really limited me. And I will say this without mincing words. The African setting trains us to be servants. There's this servitude mentality that we have when we are growing up. It comes from our culture, it comes from our family, it comes from the educational system, so many things. So when you now come here, challenge for me was I had to unlearn those things. I had to just remove those things from my mind. For example, just things as little as you see your professor in school, you call them Jackson. In Africa, we call them, we have to even kneel down and almost prostrate and lie down to even greet our professor. Of course, it's not saying that they are teaching you to be disrespectful to your elders, but there's this mentality of servitude that's always embedded in our culture. So that was my first major challenge. I had to unlearn them because I saw that they were limiting my ability to progress as an immigrant the way I wanted. So that was a major challenge, the mental migration.
And that what you just said about thriving, not only living in a challenge mentality, that some people don't even know how to get away from that. To the extent, even if they get to certain level that they say, you know what, I'm still thriving. Okay, I need to disassociate myself with this mentality of survivor to just saying, you know what, I'm living a life, even no matter how small it is.
Yeah.
It's very powerful. And it's not something that many of us actually able to differentiate
break
between,
out from. Yeah.
break down. We just go through certain way and we continue to, we are not even seeing it that we are in that self-survival mode all the time.
Yeah.
And that's very powerful, what you just said. So what surprised you most, both positively and negatively, about Canada society, just like we have in America here?
What surprised me the most about the Canadian society is the fact that it's so laid back. What I mean, everything is, everybody waits for you to do things at your convenience, down to the school system. Of course, there are schedules, there are deadlines to meet, but for the most part, even when you miss the deadlines, they will still tell you, okay, you have the opportunity to fix it. So the society is very laid back. So you have to not get laid back with it. Otherwise, you'll not be able to move forward the way you want to. So that was the first thing that really shocked me. And I think that's pretty much that. For the others, based on research, personal research and personal growth, most of the other things were not too strange to me.
Oh, okay. I mean, New York anyway. In America, in New York, everything is so fast. You have to do things accordingly. It's as if you are in Lagos. But when you look down south, it's so different. They are more
True.
courteous. They give you time to do what you have to do. They have time to tell you good morning. New York, they will zoom through you. As you know, you don't even, you are not even.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. So that's what it is. So what would you say you appreciate mostly about Canada, despite challenges that an immigrant do face?
Absolutely. I would say the best part of Canada is the fact that it's a place that just welcomes you, irrespective of who you are. You are just welcomed and you have the opportunity to become whoever you want to become. As much as you follow the rules, you don't break the law, and you are very much focused. Canada opens its doors to you in amazing ways. So yes, that's the number one thing. And of course, secondly, I will not fail to mention this, the healthcare system of Canada. Of course, people, there's always this online fight between American system and Canadian system, which is the best and all of that. But I always say this whenever I see, the things that I had to go through health-wise, if not for the fact that Canada operates a universal healthcare system, I would have been in big trouble. The society is pretty much open to anybody, even if as citizens, of course, it's free healthcare, permanent residents, international students, in some provinces, even workers on work permit, you have access to the public healthcare system for free. And irrespective of what happens to you, you get that adequate care that you need. So that's a big one. And thirdly, the fact that the society is very peaceful. Of course, with as life progresses, the human nature will always come out. Of course,
Yeah.
crime rates here and there, but for the most part, it's very peaceful. And it's a society that welcomes the ability to raise families in amazing ways without, societal advices that much.
That's so powerful, especially for the healthcare that you mentioned, because in America here, that's what people struggle with most. Even though when someone is sick, like emergency, they could take care of you at any hospital. They will never deny you, but then they will send you bills.
I can imagine.
Yeah, which, for visiting the hospital. Not only that, the United States is trying to level up with Canada in terms of the cost of medication, because medication in America that will cost you maybe $100, in Canada maybe like $10. So
Right.
they equate that and equalize that to every citizen in Canada, which is very powerful. So compared to America, whereby medication is so high in cost, to the extent the insurance company may say, well, this is how much you're going to pay. Even for any surgery that you might be having, they might say, we're not going to cover this health part of your surgery. We cannot afford it. And all that stuff. That's so amazing that goes on there. So how did your faith and mindset help you navigate the moments when something is uncertain or disappointment, as you come across in Canada? Because many people who will listen to this could use it as an example.
Thank you so much. That question is powerful and very, 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 very important. And when you try to mix up your faith with your immigration life and the future that you're trying to build abroad. So for the benefit of everyone, including those who are just newly migrated, those who will migrate in the future, one of the things I would say that really helped me is the fact that I was grounded in Christ before I even left the shores of my country. Most times people would think that in Africa, challenges are there in Africa? I will tell you, challenges in Africa are majorly economical, and even the activities of the kingdom of darkness in Africa is still much more outwards when it comes to the effect. It's either it's poverty or sickness or death, things like that. But when you come over to the West, I'll tell you for sure, the things that you have to deal with spiritually, they are more here. People will not believe this. They will keep thinking that the witches and wizards, the things that will oppose your faith, they are more in Africa. No, they are more in the West when you move abroad. They are less in Africa. They are more in the West. So I'm saying this as somebody who is very spiritually sensitive to the atmospheres of the places that you go to. So one of the things that really helped me is being grounded spiritually in Christ, knowing fully well that the reason for my existence is not to pursue money, is to pursue God, is to fulfill his purpose. So that has always been my driving force, that irrespective of where I find myself, my number one goal is to ensure that I'm serving God where I am, fulfilling his purpose. Then every other thing can come. According to the Bible in Matthew 6:33, that if you seek first the kingdom of God, his righteousness, all that things, he will give us what we need. So in my work with Christ, I've come to the level where I understand that irrespective of the challenges that I face, because I have faith in God, the result will definitely come. It even gets to the point whereby I don't need to pray for certain things anymore. The doors open by themselves before I get there. Why? Because over time, God has tried me, tested me, and he has found me worthy that this person, I can count on this person. So when you get to that level of walk with Christ, there's nothing he cannot do for you. The doors will open. Is it immigration? It will open. Is it money you need? It will open. Anything, it will open. So that's my number one. A lot of people, the reason I'm saying this is because a lot of people travel abroad these days. They are not solid in Christ. They live for economic reasons. Genesis 12:1, Abraham left because God told him to move. That was the first law of migration. God told Abraham, move, and he moved. So I believe that if you are not solid, when you come to the West, you will be thrown into the system very quickly and you become a meat for the grinder. And there are a lot of Christians they thought they were fervent until they moved to the West. And the spiritual foundations they thought they had were highly shaken. Bills, migration, different things, before you know it, they are out. So it's very, very important. And that's the number one thing that kept me being solid in Christ, knowing that I'm not pursuing the things of the world. I am pursuing Christ, and the things that I need will be given to me. So that was the foundation.
That's so powerful because many people, even like you said, some people who have Christ in their life, or maybe even they are Muslim, but they are not really solid in the beginning. Sense of what am I going to call it? Self-discipline may not be there because they still get caught up in the middle of the materialistic society. And here in abroad, there's no extended family. No uncle, no elder family member, because back home, whether we like it or not, there's always sense of that communal structure that tends to, let you know your behavior is not really acceptable. So when you are in a place that you are by yourself to make your own decision, sometimes it could be very challenging for some people. So let's go into your family, fatherhood, and raising children in Canada, which a lot of time it's very challenging for so many. Immigrant doesn't even just have effective individuals and a shape of a family dynamics, parenting style, as well as general, identity. As a husband, a father, what has been the greatest joy of raising your children in Canada?
The greatest joy of raising them in Canada is raising them in an environment where they are able to acquire a superior mindset as compared to the mindset that I grew up with as the number one. Is the number one because they're in an environment where they can become who they want to be with us guiding them and by the grace of God. So that's the best thing. And of course, the legacy of being in Christ, because that blessing has been passed down our generation. So it has to continue with them. So that's the blessedness of just seeing myself or seeing myself have somebody that depends on me, a lineage or a bloodline coming out of me, is the greatest blessing, of being a father. But of course, there are challenges. Absolutely. There are lots and lots of challenges. Like you rightly said, there's one African proverb that says it takes a community to raise a child. When you are here, it's just yourself and your spouse, and you have to deal with, your job. You have to deal with your education if you are going to school, and you have to deal with managing that with Christianity. And for me, even being a pastor, it became even more challenging I was a pastor with a pregnant wife, with a toddler, doing two jobs, going to school. My wife was also going to school in the midst of everything. So you can understand the impact of our time. Even though people will see me on social media still active, but behind the scene, a lot was going on. But I'm also grateful to God for, of course, the people that God placed around us. One thing about Canada is, of course, in the USA, even though the USA is big, you can still see some persons around you, in a few, but Canada is so big. Of course, Canada is bigger than the USA, and we are so sparsely populated. So your next relative can be 5 hours by flight or 5 hours by. So it's practically impossible for them to be by your side during those core moments like childbearing. So we are grateful to God for, our parents who are still alive, you know, mother-in-law and mother coming up. That's the biggest help that one can receive when you are abroad. So yes, those are the key things that God has used to bless us to, help us raise our kids. But again, it's never easy, especially knowing fully well that you don't have neighbors around you who even the kind of communal living here is totally different. Even though you just say hi to your neighbors, that's the maximum. You can't go and keep your kids with them. There are a lot of things you just have to deal with it by yourself within your house. So yes, it's absolutely challenging.
Yeah, that is so true what you said, because for many immigrants it's very challenging because we're not being taught on individualistic way of raising
Yeah.
children by ourselves. So when we're growing up, you could leave your children, they could play on the street by themselves. By the time you come back, they're still there. They know what they're supposed to do. Neighbors watch out for them. If they're doing something wrong, the next door neighbor could tell them, stop doing that. Or else I'm going to actually discipline you. There's no problem in that. But we are now in a different environment whereby it's mostly challenging to the extent some people think about, okay, let me just take this child back home to go and learn the culture, which to me, I'm kind of like against that because, you carry culture anywhere you go. And I don't think you need to take your children back home for them to learn the culture. What do you think of that?
Well, people would say do what works best for you, and there are nuances to such family arrangements. It can vary by family, but on my own personal basis, I don't think it's a good idea to send your children home. For the most part, you will see a lot of immigrants, they blame, but the system corrupted my child, the system corrupted this, the system. But the fact is, if you balance your time as a parent, you definitely get the best out of it without having to send your kids back to Africa, Jamaica, Caribbean, wherever it is. And for the most part, when parents say the system support my child, if you actually take a microscope and examine their day-to-day activity, you discover that they are the ones that actually corrupted their child. There's a common saying that even the Bible says, uh, he that breaks the hedge, the serpent will come into bite. So what does that mean? As a parent, you are to protect the integrity of your family, even down to the things that you watch, the things that you eat, the things that you play with, the friends that you keep. You have to protect the integrity of your family. It is your job. The Bible even says, guard your heart with all diligence, for out of it comes the issues of life. You are responsible for guarding your heart and the heart of your kids. So if you spend your time pursuing free jobs, pursuing, you want to buy a home because your colleagues who came 2 years after you, they have bought a home, you now put yourself under this financial pressure, trying to keep up with others around you, which I will tell you with all honesty, it is very common with the African Nigerian communities. We are always comparing one another. We are always trying to compete with one another, which again is destroying even our communities abroad. So when you now put such weight or responsibilities upon yourself, you now ignore the most important responsibility, which is your family, because God gave them to you and you will account for them at the end of time. So because of that, you now open the door for the enemy to come in. You said that the kids are raised by iPads or they just learn ideologies in school. And the worst part is they don't see Christ in you, the parent. They don't see Christ in you. The things that you all go to church on Sunday, the things that you hear in church, and the things they see you do at home, it's totally different. And they now tend to believe that Jesus Christ is just a fairy tale because the things that they see you do at home does not really match the things that you are supposed to be doing as a Christian. So because of that, the kids adding to the ideologies that they are exposed to in school, so many ideologies out there, the social vices, peer pressure, before you know it, they could start conforming. And that is where the problem starts from. It's the parents, not necessarily the system. There's no system that is good. Even in Nigeria, in Africa, there's no system that is good. The parents still face the same challenges there. So it is not just the society, it is what you, the parent, are doing. That is what matters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that, because many people do not tend to understand that aspect that you just mentioned, that is the parents' responsibility. And you are the one responsible for doing everything, making sure you navigate your children into the right direction. You cannot say just because sometimes, I stem from back home, the way we were raised. There's food in the house. When I was back home, I had to struggle to get fire. I had to struggle to turn on the stove, to get gas to cook. You don't have to do that. All what you need to do, just stay in the house, do your own work. Without understanding, you have to invest so much on these children, from making sure that after they finish school, they go to after school program. When they come home, you are at home at the same time, to make sure that you monitor every aspect of what they do, to make sure that you put them in some kind of productive program, maybe during summertime, instead of them just rolling around in the house, like you say, playing with the computer, the iPod, and all that. And that's where the devil comes in,
Yeah.
So it's not about the Western world alone. It's your responsibility for you to understand as a parent that you are in a different environment completely from where you come from. And that's so powerful what you just said. So how do African parents balance between preserving the cultural values while helping their children to integrate, if some of them have actually integrated?
I would say that's one of the biggest challenges, but I believe um, as the definition goes, culture is the way of life of people, and that way of life comes in several forms. First, with the language, second, with the food, and thirdly, with the arts, usually. And this is one of the ways you can convert people, if you look at, and then lastly, the media. So it's food, language, food, arts, which includes dressing, and then the media. So these are the four ways culture and tradition is passed. And I would say for us, what we are doing is, for the most part, we speak the language to them. We speak local language. Of course, they have traditional names. So we call them not just by their English names, but by their traditional names. And then they also see us converse with one another in those languages, and they just pick it up automatically from there. And thirdly, we also introduce them to dressing. Of course, when we have special events, those dressing, we tell them, as they grow up, they get to understand this is the culture. And then we expose them to media. So it's not all the time we see ourselves watching action movies, American, Hollywood. For the most part, we watch, Nigerian movies, we watch those local movies. So they get to see what culture is like, what back home is like. And as they grow up, we now get to explain to them even further, this is what our traditional culture is. So yes, but the most difficult one is usually the language part.
I understand. Yeah, I understand, because even many of our children who are grown up, when you see them on the social media, oh, I don't understand the language. I understand, but I can't speak it. But many of them are taking initiative to teach themselves the language, because they're seeing the pride that they have to keep up with their language. Is part of their what they need to consider part of their identity, and taking charge, they're taking part of that, which is very, very important. But in terms of integration, how do you navigate the children towards that? Because I've had a community conversation where many of our children, they come there and talk, about their experience, and they say, outside they are America. The moment they reach the door of the house, they become Ghanaians, Nigerians.
Yes, I think yes, that's pretty much what it is. They get to understand that they belong to two worlds: the world that they are born in and the world that they come from. So yes, so the world that they are born in, for the most part, what I notice is they find it easier to integrate because they are born here. For example, my kids, both of them were born in Canada, so they are Canadians by default. The weather, everything is. Sometimes I see my son pick up ice. Me, I can't hold ice for a few seconds, but because he was born in January in the deep winter. So he holds eyes, he plays with it as if he's just playing with a piece of stone. So I'm like, how are you able to do this? I can't do that. I can't. So it's natural for them to integrate to society. Very easy. But where they are coming from, which is our roots, that is the part that, has a lot of work to do. So integration is pretty natural and normal. So it requires little or no effort.
Yeah, that's so wonderful. So let's go now to your platform that you cover multiple critical pillars of immigrant success and some of the issue that they go through. So let's just break that down. So on your immigration pathway, can you briefly explain the common Canadian immigration pathway that you see?
All right. So for the most part, I would say out of over 70 immigration pathways that Canada has, there are three major paths a lot of people use. But when we say immigration pathway, we have to first of all define what the word immigration is. So even in the US, there's a difference between an immigrant and a non-immigrant. So for the most part, people confuse the word immigrant to mean anybody that is what it's supposed to be naturally speaking. When you move from one place to another permanently, that is what makes you an immigrant. So most times people who travel on study visa, they call themselves immigrant. They are not necessarily immigrants. Even visitors are not immigrants. So if we are saying immigration or being an immigrant, we are talking about the pathways to permanent residency. So the pathways to permanent residency, the major one that a lot of people use is, I'll say one, and it's a system in Canada called express entry, which is popular to a lot of people. People don't know it. Now, express entry is not necessarily an immigration pathway. It is rather an immigration system whereby specific talented individuals can join and they are selected to become permanent residents based on their skill, their age, their work experience. If it's on demand, it gets so express entry is the system that people can join. And for the most part, an ideal candidate is somebody who is 30 and below, has at least a bachelor's degree or master's or 2 degrees combined. The person is able to write language tests like IELTS, and if possible, they can also include French because Canada is a bilingual country. So if you have language proficiency in English and French, you have more points. And then you also have like minimum 3 years of work experience added to that. So when you combine these factors together and you now join the express entry pool, you usually have there's a high tendency that you'll be selected either by the federal government or by the provinces to become a permanent resident. So that's it.
I didn't even know they have points.
Yes, it's a
It's
point-based system.
exciting. If you speak the language, in America, they have something like recruiting immigrants from different countries. Then there's this,
Like the green card.
uh-huh,
Yeah, it's kind of similar to the green card, but
yeah,
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 kind of similar. But it's
and
point-based.
yeah, then they have a refugee status also for those whose country are going through war that they allow them. So let me even go back to your social media platform. And
Yeah,
I think this is what created why maybe you started social media.
yeah,
Many influencers start visibility, but some start with a burden and a purpose, which is what
yeah.
you did. So what prompts you to start the social media to guide immigrants or potentially
Mm.
travelers or immigrants who may be thinking of migrating to Canada? What prompted that for you?
It was something personal that happened. The major reason was I had a friend of mine who, when I left Nigeria years back, he was eager to leave as well. This eagerness can drive you into the hands of the wrong people. And he ultimately found himself in a place called Azerbaijan, which is one of those Eastern European countries that can be volatile in terms of their society and all. And the worst part was that his father just passed on at that time and they had to sell their father's house, which was the only house they had, put money together, borrow money to send him abroad, thinking they were sending him to a nice European country, knowing that he was going to land in Azerbaijan. So, and when he was now there, he was now calling me, seeking for help, like, oh, he's in distress and all. The thing really broke my heart. And I was like, no, this can't continue to happen because I grew up I'm from a tribe called Addo, Benin City in Nigeria. And Benin City, for the most part, youth there's this epidemic of young people going through, land to go to Europe from, it's very common with our tribe. So I've seen a lot of, even recently, I was asking my siblings, how about this person in Nigeria? How about this person? I keep hearing they have died. They died on their way to Tunisia. They died on their way to Libya. Like almost all the youths I grew up with, almost all of them have passed on, either by courtesan or by, land migration, trying to go abroad. So to go and seek asylum, it's very common. And a lot of people, lives have been lost, like literally. So that was what moved me And me trying to send him help, financial help, was just a tip of the iceberg. Or how about me telling him that, this is the right thing to do. This is how you can get out of this. And so that was what really motivated me. I was like, no, I can't continue to see people around me go through things like this. So that's what just moved me on social media and all. Yeah. So that's where it started from. Yeah.
What can you just imagine how these people manipulate these
Yeah.
people to pay so much money for them to take them abroad? And they're thinking, because the picture they see of all these different countries, that at least they will live better than where they come from, without knowing that they're going into another, maybe sometimes, worse situation than what
But
the
yeah. Even
country.
recently, the problem is that the pandemic is still there. Even recently, you've heard about the Russian-Ukraine war. You've heard about the
Yeah,
fact that a lot of people were even deceived by travel agents telling them that they're going to have security jobs in some Eastern European countries, only to get them and they get enlisted in the army to fight for
to fight
Russia.
for.
Yeah, and many of them have died. Yeah, it's still going on. It's just taking a different turn. So that's one of the reasons we are out there on social media, just enlightening people, even down to the basics. What I do is, before I became very, very busy, I just come online Saturdays. I just choose a subject and I just start teaching people. Then people come over the phone. I make it a phone program. People come to ask questions, down to the basic stuff like, you should understand not all countries are the same. Even in the Europe that a lot of people are going to, European countries have three classes. There's grade one, the best, there's grade two, the middle, there's grade three, the European countries that you should never step your foot in. So these are the basic things. How did I know? When you want to book a car, let me just say this. When you want to book a car, let's say you travel to Europe, you want to book a car, like car rental, to, you book a car to drive. You notice that in the car rental agreement, even the car rental company will tell you, these are the places that you can drive this car to. Let's say, for example, I go to Germany. I went to Frankfurt about 2 years ago. I rented the car. They told me these are the A-list European countries. You are free to drive the car across border to any of those countries, from Germany to France and all. But they now said, if you are driving the car to places like Poland, you have to seek for our permission before you can drive it there. That is a B-list European country. Then there's a C-list European country which you are not permitted to even drive the car there. Yes, otherwise you will face huge fines. I'm telling you, anytime you book a car to Europe, just you go to Europe, you book a car rental from any of these major sites like Enterprise, Avis, Rent a Car, all of these budget car rental companies. You always see it there. So there's A list, B list, and C list European countries. That's Europe for you. Not all countries are the same. So down to those basic stuff, I teach people to let them know that before you go somewhere, always ask the right questions so that you don't find yourself in a place that is even worse than the country that you are coming from.
I didn't even know they have a class A, class B
Absolutely.
in European countries. Maybe the places where they're fighting war or instability and all that, a lot of issue going on. Wow.
Yeah, if you go all the way back, and it started all the way back from, I believe, from the World War, I think the Second World War, where the Berlin Wall was created, the
Yeah.
separation between East and West Germany was also separation between Eastern Europe and Western Europe. So the Western European countries, for the most part, they are the A-list European countries. They are the ones that are doing well. But you see the one in the middle, like Poland and Co., they are the B-list. To the East, they are the C-list countries. Even though they have European Union written on their passports, they are not on the same level with the others.
And to understand also, because back home, some people would still have this mentality, if I could just get a little bit of pounds or dollars and take it back, I mean, I could maybe fix my problem without understanding to accumulate all that money. It's not that easy.
It's absolutely, it's not easy at all.
So how do you balance between being honest with this, reality of issues and without discouraging people?
Well, see, that was the funniest part. One of the things that I try to do is to wear a thick skin, because even though you are honest, people will still take your honesty as discouragement. So at the beginning, of course, it got to me when I really started getting more and more visibility. But over time, I just wore a thick skin. I'm like, it's still good. I will still tell the people the truth. If it gets to the point whereby I notice that they are trying to hijack the comment section, I will just lock off the comments so that the message can still go to the people that,
Yeah,
without
we
those
appreciate it.
diverting comments. Yeah, people can be very brutal. And these days on social media, I think from 2020, in the pandemic, a lot of things just went sideways with social media. That people, irrespective of what you say, they just want to be right. They just want to feel right, even though they are wrong. Even though what you are saying is the truth, they just want to feel right. So they will attack you in the comments, attack you and make a lot of stuff out of it. So yeah, I just wear a thick skin and put the
Yeah.
message out there. People will
That's
benefit. They will benefit.
that's all you could do, because you are doing what you are doing for benefit of those who will actually find the message very appropriate and they will appreciate it. Because it's the same thing with a Nigerian lawyer in America here who actually give advice to many people in this country. I don't know whether you've come across him, advising people in Yoruba language in terms of what they have to go through now with immigration, with Trump in
Yes.
power. And he found so many people actually absorbing it and thanking him. And then you find some people saying, "Oh, you're not even speaking the Yoruba right." This is some of our people who
Yeah.
trying to scare us and all that stuff, which sometimes you cannot do without that. Actually, I actually interview him. His conversation with me is coming up next. So it's
Awesome.
something that we need to actually understand. And I'm glad that you're able to put thick skin towards that and say, whatever you want, you could think whatever you want. I'm still going to do what I have to do, because there's
Yeah.
so many people benefiting from this. So I'm going to go back into the immigration pathway now that people don't understand. Employment and professional support. Why do many immigrants struggle to secure jobs aligned with their professional qualification? Maybe some of them back home, they might be doctors, they might be lawyers, they might be engineers, thinking that they're going to come here and get that job right away.
Well, yes. So that is a huge one. I would say there are that's it, three factors that usually limit people from being able to, or maybe more than three. The first one is the disparity in the profession, the way it is practiced where you are going to and the way it's practiced where you are coming from. The exposure to state-of-the-art equipment, up-to-date knowledge in that profession. So for the most part, when you are going to that new country, they will not just allow you to just start practicing right away. You may have to maybe do one or two certifications, write one or two exams, or go through the licensing process before you can practice. There was a video I did recently about nurses, how nurses from Africa, from Nigeria, can be able to continue practicing, the nursing licensing process in Canada, in the USA or the UK. And I said the first step is to um, you have to evaluate your results. So your nursing degree, whatever you have to convert it into the standards of that new country. There are bodies that do that. After which the next process will be to apply to a state or province who will give you the license before you now start applying for the jobs to practice. So that's the disparity in the systems of the country you are going to and the country you are coming from. It may not just be that easy to just transfer and start working. You have to go through those processes. Then the second challenge or limiting factor is the quality of the people you meet, the mentality you arrive with. What do I mean? Sometimes you come as a doctor to the US and you believe that you can find a way to go through the system and start being a doctor in the US. But the people that you meet, they will tell you, "Oh, you see this our circle, we are all Uber drivers. So you have to become an Uber driver first." I'm not saying Uber driving is wrong. It gives money. People do it, they get the best out of it. But you know that you came with a plan. But because of the quality of people, I always say this, the quality of the first group of people that hold your hands when you arrive in a new country, it matters a lot towards your long-term establishment. They can either give you the driving mentality or they will create a glass ceiling in your head that you cannot go above a certain level.
Yes.
So that in itself is a problem. So the mentality you arrive with and the things that you now meet, the realities you now meet on ground. Okay, for now, let me be an Uber driver to make money while I'm going to school. Then once I build to a certain level and I'm done with school, I'll go and write that medical exam, get the license, and then come back to my initial plan. So you see, a Uber job, the warehouse job is just what we call survivor job. It's just for you to help you get to your goal. And then your life now actually starts the way you want it. But the third factor is the survivor mentality. You see, a lot of people now get stuck in that warehouse job, in that Uber job. When money start, even in that job, they not get promoted. They'll be like, what? What? Medical doctor, I'm here making him good money. Why should I go and do it? So they now get relaxed. So from that point, they are now stuck. They cannot go forward anymore. So these are the things that can actually just, keep you from being what you want to be if you don't manage it.
And you are so right about that because your field may be challenging in the
Yeah.
West compared to
Yes.
back home.
Yes.
Sometimes medical doctor, in order for you to pass the exam, you can't just pass it easily when you come to America or Canada because the different level of training, different exposure that their medical student went through or go through on a daily basis that you have never even experienced that. And when you want talking about being a lawyer, you cannot just implement law that you learn in Nigeria, come and implement it here. You have to learn a new system in general. That's why in America here, when lawyers they graduate from law school, they pass the bar. They will say, "I could only practice in so all these states. That's where I could practice." Because
Yeah.
in another state is a different ball game. So the reality that people really have to be truthful to themselves. And you don't really blame them because you have many of our people who go back home and they show this, image that, oh my God, you don't even know how God has really blessed me in America. The wealth that I'm able to acquire in America without even telling them that, listen, I just came here to blow little savings that I have,
Yeah.
that's the purpose of me being here. So that's what it is. So what are some of the costly mistakes you see immigrants make during their visa or travel process? If you could just expand on that.
Well, there are so many. There are so many. So are you talking about the mistakes they make that affect their ability to get the visa, or the mistakes they make even though they get the visa, it affects them in the future?
Yes, yes, it affects them in the future after the visa.
Okay. All
Because
right.
if you make
So
the mistake, you won't get the visa in the first place.
yes.
But after you get the visa, then you come here and then it could affect your future.
Okay. So I'll try to explain both parts. For those who the mistakes you make that affect your eligibility for visa is just pretty basic, like not declaring that you have enough money for the purpose of your, movement. Of course, every immigration program has a specified amount of money that you should have to show that you can take care of yourself. Even if it's immigration wise, if it's an immigrant visa, there's specific, even the person that is sponsoring you, there's specific amounts they must have. So that's one. Then secondly, it can be in the area of if it's a temporary kind of um, migration, you have to maybe temporary visa. You must show that you have, very, very strong socioeconomic ties to your home country,
Hmm.
which means as we want to give you the visa, you are showing us proof that you will go back home after you're done. So you have to show the proof. Even if your long-term goal is to stay back, you have to show the proof that you are going back home if it's a temporary visa. Yeah.
So that goes on in Canada now.
Yes. Yeah. You
I
must
thought
have
it's
proof.
only America that
No, it's
do
pretty
this.
much basic. No, it's pretty much basic. You must show proof that you are going back home once you're done. So that's for temporary visas though. But if it's for immigrant visa, you don't necessarily need to show that you're going back home. Immigrant visa means you are coming to stay permanently. For temporary visas like study visa, work permit, and all of that, you have to show proof that you'll be going back home. It's one of the reasons that, would make you eligible for the visa. Now, talking about mistakes that you make that even though you get approved can affect you in the future, it's majorly not declaring your criminal record if you have one, not declaring your total family members. A lot of people make that mistake. They'll show they are single, but they have families. I'm like, why are you doing that? You can show that you have family, but tell them that you are not bringing your family yet. Your family is going to stay back in Ghana while you are in the US. That's the best way you can do that. But not declaring that you have family, showing that you are single, but later on, when you now become a resident in your country, you now automatically now say, "Oh, I have family, I want to bring them in." Definitely, that will stop you because where's the family coming from all of a sudden? You said you don't have family before, now you have family. So criminal records very important. You declare it because they will definitely know. They will definitely know. So declare it, be truthful, be honest, and it will save you a lot.
Wow. And the number of family that you have,
Absolutely, that matters.
so that they will know how many people might end up migrating.
Yeah,
I thought it's only Trump doing this. I didn't know this already started in Canada.
it's global.
Okay, so I want to talk about social isolation because it's different when you move to Western or European world and then you find yourself in social isolation, especially we coming from a community bound environment. So mental health and the Canadian dream or even American dream. You've spoken openly about how chasing the Canadian dream become isolating and mentally draining. You said that immigration can lead to boring, unexciting life without intentional community. Can you expand on that more?
Yes, thank you so much. So, despite the fact that sometimes we always tell the truth that Africans, Nigerians, Black folks, we always have this spirit of competition, classism, always comparing. It doesn't mean that there are not good persons out there. We still have good communities across Canada, even in the US. I still hear and know, good number of Nigerian communities that are doing amazing. They help each other. And, on a side note, I always say this: if you are looking for an amazing community of people who can be there for you as a new immigrant, you want to start with your Christian community, because that's one of the reasons why you have a church to go to. It's the foundation that can help you, you know, to not feel alone, especially when you are in societies whereby you can't even find any Black person like you. The
Yeah.
number one place you want to find help, find the community that can be there for you, is the Christian community, the church. You find a church near you, sign up, start serving, and let them know without shame that you are new to the country. That is where you can find the help that you need. But on a side note, yes, we have good African communities. Even here, I live in Southern Ontario in Canada. We have good communities all over. We are doing amazing. We have lots of events coming up, even this spring and summer, whereby the government officials, even down to the prime minister, even the previous prime minister, they have come for our events. The previous prime minister, we invited him to come to our events, Taste of Nigeria Festival and all of that. We do it. So we're always out there for one another, even for my social media platform, meet lots of Nigerians. But here's the thing: let's say you come to a new country like Canada, one of the major places you might first of all arrive in could be the big cities like Toronto, Brampton, Mississauga, or maybe to the west. You arrive in Vancouver, Edmonton, Winnipeg, Quebec, Montreal, the big cities. But that is where you start life, you try to navigate your way. But as you now settle down, here's where the problem starts. As you now settle down, maybe you now get to the point you want to raise your family, or you now buy a home. And for the most part, when you are buying a home, you usually go to the outskirts communities. So because you want to find a cheaper house. Even in America, I believe it happens. People that come to New York, by the time you now want to buy a house, you now go to a place like Texas, those outskirts places to go and buy a house because it's cheaper there. But the challenge with that is, as you now go to those areas, you now get even more isolated. That's second level isolation, because with that new house sometimes you come out of your house. When we move to the place that we are in right now, when we moved here like 3 years ago, there were literally no houses around us. So yeah, it's a new development area. So you can imagine how isolated it was. But now, of course, we now have lots of Black folks also moving over here. So that second level isolation, which your kids, for the most part, they are always indoors. You are always indoors. You go to work. So there's this isolation that really hits hard when you now move even further outskirts because you want to buy a house. But the solution to that, like I earlier said, is even though you are isolated on the second level because you just bought a home, try and find a Christian community near you, because that's the closest to home that you cannot have at that moment.
Yeah.
So yes.
So is that what you call intentional community building
Yes.
among immigrants?
Yes. So yeah, that's what works at that point. But again, for the part where the first level, like I said, the first level isolation is you being isolated from your family back home. You move to a new country, you find yourself in the big cities. The first thing you want to do is to integrate yourself with the communities that are there in those big cities while you are there for the meantime, because a time will come when life will take you even further from those big cities, which is the second level of isolation. So the first level of isolation, where you are still in the big cities or you are just away from your family back home, the intentionality you can do is to integrate yourself with the community that you have around you. Like I just mentioned, in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, we have Nigerian communities all over. We have the network of Nigerians in Canada, Nigerians in Kitchener, Nigerians in London, Ontario, Nigeria. So we are always everywhere. So you just have to integrate yourself. They will not come to you. You have to go out there and make yourself known, integrate yourself. We have events, and it is in those events that you receive the connection that you need. Connections in business, connections in jobs is very, very important. But when you now go to second level isolation, when you now buy your home and move further out, I think at that point, the only integration you have is with your local church.
Wow. And how does it work for even many Africans who are elderly or retired African immigrant in particular? How does this affect them?
It's even more challenging when you are an elder. This is one question that many of us don't ask ourselves when we move abroad. Okay. When you move abroad, you cut ties with people back home because, black tax and all. But what people don't think of, what if I now get to 60, 70? How will I now live life? Because you don't, the way society is here, you don't have a community around you. So what do you do? So I would say for those who are elderly, your integration does not start when you are elderly. Your
Yeah.
integration starts from when you were young. You have to intentionally build that community around you. People around you, usually of the same age group or age grade, or maybe you just have one common ideology or faith that you pursue. That is now your new family. Or
Mm.
otherwise, for some people, it's still up to personal choice. They'll say they'll retire and go back to their home countries to live there.
And sometimes that could be very challenging also, which is another conversation I'm having with somebody regarding building houses back home, where you use all your savings to
Mhm.
build houses back home in a place where, as you get older, the more medical care you're going to need.
Yeah.
And if you go to countries, which is sad to say, in many parts of Africa, there's no adequate health care to cater for an elderly who may run into major medical problem.
Yeah.
That's why in Nigeria, the lifespan is between 55 to 60,
Yes.
So because if we have that health care, people will live longer.
True, true. And over here in the West, the major challenge for those who are elderly is that there's a thriving business in the West. That's why you have personal support workers, those they call it old people's homes, residence homes for the seniors. So for the most part, you see that when people work hard, maybe they have a few kids, the kids now ultimately move them to those residences. I work in an organization where we deal with people who are selling off their properties. So when they sell properties, they reach out to us to close this account, close that account, close that account. And then we'll ask why. Okay, what's your next address for us to close your account? The address is usually to a senior's residence. So basically, the person is old, the kids help the father or mother to sell the house, and then they now move the parents to a senior's residence where they now live for the rest of their lives until they pass on. So it's like that's the system we find in the West, not just Canada. I believe it's also in the US and most Western nations. So it is now in that residence that they now find peers, friends, where they now live together until they die. But for those who do not find themselves in such homes, maybe they are able to raise their kids to understand that, this is what life is, this is tradition. You don't ship your parents off to such residences. Secondly, you will not usually find yourself in that situation if you also plan for your own future as an adult. Because we Africans, we grew up with the mentality that I will squeeze myself to level 0 to take care of my child. When my child grows up, you come and take care of me. For the most part, you know that our kids that you born in the West, they don't have that mentality to come and take care of you. Once you're done, once they are 18, they move out, your life is now left for you to take care of. So as you are planning for your kids, you also have to plan for yourself, your retirement and all of that. So how you will live your life, where will you live? Your kids' life is separate from your life. They cannot be dependent on you. You cannot be dependent on them. Parents at this time need to start planning towards that future whereby they are planning for a future of from their kids. And the only thing that now brings you to your kids' house is maybe you want to go and visit them, you want to go and take care of your grandchildren. But for the most part, you just tour the world with your husband or your wife alone and enjoy your retirement. But many people don't find themselves in that situation because they did not plan for it. So it's one horrible future that I don't want to think about because it's fearful. But apparently, we'll all get there by virtue as God wills, but we just have to plan for it.
Yeah, we have to. And you cannot blame the West. And we talk about black tax. That is why many of us cannot even put savings together.
True.
But we have to take care of our parents back home. Our system in Africa does not have retirement fund. They don't have social security that anybody pays for. Your children are your social security to the extent those who don't have children, they kind of like dismiss in the society that who is going to take care of you when you don't have children. So we have to think about that. This is a system that they plan for the future for the parents, and they plan the future for the children, because those children, they have to have their own life too. Move on. And I've seen even in America here that some of them, sometimes they leave work to take care of their parents, especially, if they can stop working for some time, they will actually take care of them when they're reaching the last stage in their life. To say, I just want to be there because I really appreciate. So this stigma that people usually have about the West, that, oh, they just dump their parents in a nursing home.
No, it's not
Back home,
true. No.
it's not true. How many people back home that the parents still live in the house and the children don't even look at, don't even take care of them? We have such situation. It's just to be realistic about things in life. And you have to have the plan. Like you said, you cannot be keeping money to send back home to take care of different people, or not plan for your future here, to understand that at one time, I'm going to reach that age and my children may not be available to care for me, which is very, very important. So I want to, what caught my eyes with your post is about discrimination and microaggression and the systematic racism that many African immigrants do experience in Canada and in America here. So beyond the credential, race, and perception play powerful role in immigrant outcome, you've spoken about microaggression. How does this show up in everyday life of African immigrants?
Wow. I would say that there's no society, the common denominator is there's no society where you don't experience microaggression, as much as you are outside of the continent of Africa, whereby everybody looks pretty much the same as you are. It comes in so many ways. Sometimes you have to sit down and think of what the other person has just said to you before you realize that it's not a compliment. It's more or less microaggression. Things as simple as you speak English so well. That's not a compliment. That's microaggression, if you look at it, because it's coming from a place of, we never thought people like you even understand English at all. So for you speaking English so well, it's a big thing. So that's microaggression itself. So it usually starts from your workplace. If you are working, down to the food you eat, you would make some comments. Some people come and touch your hair, and they're like, "Oh, I've never seen something like." Sometimes it can come from a place of genuineness, but over time, you will definitely see the patterns that these people, for the most part, they are not genuine. And it also comes even in public places. You sit in a bus, as you're about to sit down, the person stands up and goes sits somewhere else. Those minor things. It's not necessarily racism. 100% is just microaggression based on the fact that they see you as an alien, somebody that should not even be among the midst. That's it.
I believe in Canada, there's diversity of different people, whether
Yes.
African, from Middle East, and all these other different places. How does that relationship works?
Well, I would say it's pretty much the same as the way you find it in America. It's not pretty much different. Of course, people have this general, or should I say, mindset or mentality that Canada is welcoming, but for the most part, I will tell you for sure, the racism in Canada is more systemic than verbal. It's
Oh,
systemic. It's just hitting the system. So the
yeah.
system kind of determines, who goes up, who goes down, without necessarily anybody coming to it, stuff like that.
Yeah, and
So,
for people who may not even you understand, maybe people back home who may listen to this, what impact does repeated discrimination have on physical health, mental well-being, and income stability as well?
oh my goodness, it has everything to do with it. So the first part is it messes up with your mind when you get to realize that these guys, they are not welcoming. Again, not all. So I will not use a blanket generalized statement. You still come to communities or even spaces of welcoming places where you meet really nice people. People who are just naturally nice. They like you for who you are, not necessarily because of your skin colors. The fact that you are carrying a black skin color in itself can be a disadvantage depending on the mindset of the people that are around you. So it can affect your mentality and your sense of your self-worth. And if anything attacks your mentality and your sense of your self-worth, ultimately, be rest assured, it will affect your identity. And when those three things are affected, they are the pillars of your life: your mentality, your self-worth, your identity. If those three things are affected, money and the other things will not matter anymore. They will become useless. It will affect them ultimately as well.
Yeah.
So
That is
that's it.
that's so true, because if you, even though you are an immigrant, you're working in a place and people look at you, you might have the qualification or due for promotion, but they don't think you worth being promoted because of who you are, and that will, like you said, it will really affect your income. It will affect your mental well-being, because psychologically you're dealing with this, that am I less of a person, or do I not meet up enough? And another thing that we don't tend to talk about is intra-minority dynamics and the diaspora tension coming from people of color to people of color.
Absolutely.
I don't know whether you've seen that in Canada. Yeah,
Yes.
how let's highlight how African immigrant can feel unsupported, even within the diaspora. Can you explain, if you understand the dynamics of that?
Okay, so you're asking about a fellow
About,
African to a fellow African?
yeah, African immigrant versus, I don't know what you guys have, because in America we have African American descendants of slaves. We have
Yes.
Latinos. We
Yes.
have people from the Caribbean. And when you level everybody, African is seen as the bottom of everybody.
Yes, the same applies. Yes, yes. Like you said, intra-minority discrimination, it's also rampant here. I'll tell you, while Canada may look like there's this systemic racism, but the outward physical face-to-face racism that you face the most are usually from people with color, people with, we call it BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, and people of color. So usually it's people of color like you that are usually more aggressive to you. What do I mean? For example, I have the most outward racist experience that I've had was from an Indian person at
Hmm.
the place of work. That was when I was just new to Canada, just about a year in Canada. So that was my experience. And even when you go out there, microaggression, let's say you are at a fast food drive-through, you're trying to order for food, you speak in your accent, and you discover that the person that is taking your order is also an immigrant with an accent. And the person will be sounding as if they can't hear you. Like, I can't hear you. Can you say that again? But I'm like, even you have an accent. So why are you behaving as if I'm speaking French? I'm not speaking French. I'm speaking English. So why are you behaving as if you can't understand me? Even when you yourself also have an accent. It's not like you are speaking Queen's English. So those microaggressions, racism, they usually come from people of color like me. So how do you deal with that? It's basically, it still boils down to, you know, your sense of self-worth. When you know who you are, of course, it will definitely get to you at some point, one or two issues here and there, but you still have to come back to knowing who you are, that your skin color does not really change your identity. Your skin color is just, this is just a shell. When you go to the grave, to the cemetery, you don't see you cannot differentiate a black person's bones from a white person's bones. Everybody's pretty much the same. And there's no black race, white race. There's only one race. It's called the human race. And that is it.
And that is so true, because if you think about it, with people of color themselves, that you said is the same thing in America. Yeah, African immigrants face most of the discrimination daily basis from other people of color,
Yeah.
because we're seen at the bottom of almost all the races because of the stigma that is associated with Africa, and they don't even think you have any form of advanced knowledge in anything. Just like a white person may tell you, oh, I didn't know you speak English well. Black person will tell you the same thing. Oh, you speak English so well. So, and it could also affect your income, your job promotion, opportunity given to you, because we mostly focus on systematic racism and institutionalized racism without looking at, even if a person of color is in position of power, may look down at you as an African, that you are not qualified for a position, or I'm not going to give you the job. I'm not going to hire you because, our ancestors have been here for so long, which is what we face in America. We've been here
Yes.
for so long, from generation to generation, and there's no way I'm going to give that job opportunity to a black person, or even when they look at even our children who were born here or raised in this country, even though you don't have an accent, you're a child of immigrants. And I don't think this opportunity is for you. And we have to talk about it openly, because when we focus only on color of the skin, we are not talking about within race, the dynamics of the same race, who discriminate against themselves.
It's very common, like you rightly said, in America. I've seen even on social media a lot of Black movements who they go with this ideology that there's a difference between Black American from African American. That they were descendants of slaves. So I tend to ask the question: okay, you're descendants of slaves. Where did your ancestor slaves come from? Did they fall from the sky? No, they came from Africa. So you are still a descendant. You're still an African descendant. So that is very, very common. And also, it happens in the workplace, like you rightly said. There's this trauma response. People believe because they are Blacks, they have suffered, to climb to this position. So now that they are in that position of power, you as a Black person, you also have to suffer too. So they have to make you suffer by not giving it to you, or by giving it to you and stressing you through it, that you ultimately want to quit. So that happens. And beyond one of the ways I believe, especially for the workplace racism, I'm getting to realize that even though there's institutionalized racism, there's personalized racism, but you can still overcome it. I always believe that there's still a headway for you. And not all challenges we face at our workplaces are usually racism based. Most of them are. I'm getting to realize they are more political based. The offices, corporations, they have their own politics. If you know how to play it very well, you can still climb the ladder. Coming from Africa, we believe in hard work. Hard work is good. It is non-negotiable. But in the Western world, corporation politics, it is not the person that works the hardest that get promoted. It's the person that is most visible that gets promoted. So when you understand the politics of visibility, you come to a place of work. It's not just to start working. You have to identify who are those at the positions of power where your promotion is relevant to. So once you need to identify those people and start aligning with them. That is office politics. When I will stop there.
Thank you so much. So, let me just reflect on the advice and hope. What advice would you have for newly arrived African immigrants today?
Okay, the advice can take the next 1 hour to take with this, but let me cut it short. First of all, mind the people, the first set of people that you meet. Be mindful of the advice they give to you. Again, the quality of the first group of persons you meet when you arrive in a new country, it helps a long way determine how far you go or how slow you will go. That's number one. Set the lowest of expectations. Make sure your expectations are extremely low. Those are the lowest. Don't expect anything. But number three, you must put God first. And finally, work with a mindset of possibilities. I can do it. I can do it mentality. You'll definitely make it.
Thank you so much. I don't even know. I could keep you here all day because you have so much wisdom to share. I really thank you, Addo, Eddie, Osaman. Thank you so much for joining us today and for your honesty, wisdom, dedication to the immigrant community. Your work, both professionally and spiritually, continue to educate, empower, and bring clarity to so many people navigating the complex immigrant system and unfamiliar societies. We truly appreciate the integrity and the compassion you bring to this space. To our listeners, thank you for tuning in. If this episode resonates with you, please share it with others within the community. Leave a comment, subscribe, and follow the show on your favorite podcast platform. Your support helps amplify stories that matters, ensure this conversation reach those who need them most. Until next time, keep learning, keep building community, and remember, your immigrant journey is valid.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Ponza Ponza Live Podcast. We hope to have you back with us in the next episode as we continue to explore the nuances of the African immigrant experience. If you'd like to connect with us, you can email us at talk@ponsaponsa.org. That is TALK@PANSA pansa.org, and follow us on Instagram at pansa.pansaforum. Until next time, remember to spread kindness and love. Thank you and take care of yourselves.